It's time to buckle up and pull on that yellow tab. We're speeding through Disneyland Resort to maximize ride time with our list of the best single rider lines.
You're listening to Castle Talk Radio. We're live on the airwaves with Becca and Jessica. Now let's jump into this week's episode.
Today, we'll teach you how to double up on rides with Lightning Lane and Single Rider, or ditch Lightning Lane altogether to save a few bucks. We have details on when, where, and what rides to jump on as a single rider, plus when single rider queues might not be worth your time.
I personally love a good single rider line and use it often. And today, not only will we teach you all about it, just like Becca said, we're going to teach you all the rules. And because there are rules, and if there's anything that can pull out the Karen in me, it just might be single rider lines.
Oh, really? I'm thinking there's a story behind that one.
Maybe. But just know that my story did not involve any yelling or crying or like name calling, cussing, or public shaming. But
Okay.
Maybe just a kind correction on how to use single rider lines. So, Becca, tell us how it's done.
Well, you are kind of the expert on the ride queue rules, but I'll go ahead and I'll do that. So on the Disneyland app, it says, and I'm paraphrasing kind of, single rider allows groups to split up and ride select attractions individually. Your party will be separated to fill the remaining seats. So the fine print Disney includes is seat choice is not accommodated, seating requests are not permitted, wait times vary, participating attractions vary, and it's subject to change. So Karen, Jessica, interpret that for us.
Happy to, Becca. Okay. So the first rule that you said is single rider allows groups to split up and ride individually. So that means once you're in the single rider queue, you are no longer a party or a group. You are an individual. So, often we gladly let someone pass by to catch up with their group who's running behind, or maybe they had to step out because a little one had to use the restroom. So that is not the case with single rider line. No one belongs to a group here. We are all on our own. That's maybe what I might have said to someone. Single rider allows groups to split up. So again, groups can use single rider, but you will split up. It doesn't mean that you have to be visiting the parks alone, but if you are, it's the best time to bring a book or a Kindle. And I've done that when I didn't feel like interacting with anyone, and it was the best time. So your party will be separated to fill seats. And again, you don't get to choose where you sit, and you will be sitting by someone that you don't know. So if this happens to be a young child, now I've seen cast members do this before, and they've asked the parent and or child if that was okay before placing a single adult next to a child. Now, I've never seen this on Goofy Sky School, but I've seen this on Space Mountain. And I think that's because of the way the ride is set up, like in the dark, and Goofy Sky School is like out in the open. And I think that was really cool.
I also, just to point out, it's not that they're asking the child that's a single rider. They're asking the group that had a child that ended up on their own row if they were okay. So don't think that they're going to ask your single rider child if they can sit by someone else. And just a reminder, as we're talking about this, that single rider is only for those 7 and above, because that is how old you must be to ride by yourself at Disneyland Resort. So don't try and put your 5-year-old in the single rider line. Not going to happen.
Right. Yeah. So I've seen that happen. I thought that was really cool and good thing to do. It's not going to always happen, but I feel like if you're like a party of 3 and you're going through the regular line, and you're like a parent with 2 little ones, and you've got 2 5-year-olds and you're sitting with one, and the other
But that
5-year-old's
wouldn't
going alone and
happen.
they're going to put a single rider in there and you don't want that adult, just say, no, thank you. We'd like this one to ride by themselves, I think they'll accommodate that for you. But that's just like a little side note there. Another thing is just to have a meeting place for your group afterwards, because again, you're going to be split up. Now, there's a rare chance that you might be placed to ride together, but single rider means alone. Single.
There are a lot of rules around it, but for those that are hopping in the single rider line, it can save you a lot of time and it can save you money by not making you purchase the Lightning Lane Multipass. Or my favorite one is it can avoid purchasing the Lightning Lane Single Pass that you have to purchase for Radiator Springs racers. And I do also want to point out there are a few rides that offer a buddy pass sometimes that allow a small party of two to ride to and fill up seats. And we'll talk about that as well. So let's start with each ride individually and talk about the strategies for each one, because sometimes it's not worth it to do single rider.
Yeah, for sure. So the rides can change. So your best bet is to type in single rider into the search function on the Disneyland app the day that you're there. So it's going to pull up the results on a map. And we're just going off of that search results today. So it can change. But the first one that we're going to talk about right now is from Disneyland Park, and that is Millennium Falcon Smuggler's Run. So that one I think is totally worth it. It's usually a really short wait, if a wait at all.
Yeah.
That one has been consistently a really great one to use from the time that this ride opened. Even when it was super popular, it was a really great one. The only thing is that you're usually going to get the worst role in the Millennium Falcon, which is, in my opinion, engineer. And Becca said a few episodes ago that they sometimes will let you go in as two. So you might be able to go in with a buddy and be two engineers together. So that's pretty cool. And if you have never done this attraction, I think you would want to go on it as a regular rider and get to experience possibly a different role, like a pilot. But there's also a chance that you go in the regular queue and you're still an engineer. So I don't know. I still think it's a great option to do single rider on this, especially if you want to ride it twice and use a lightning lane and then go on single rider.
Yeah. And I have to tell you, one time I was at a media preview for Rogers the Musical, and my husband was in the park with me that day. So while I and our friend Leslie, while we were doing Rogers the Musical, my husband went over and did single rider for Millennium Falcon Smuggler's Run over and over and over using the single rider. And he rode, I think he said like 12 times, but then he stopped counting. I was just like, that's crazy.
That is a lot.
Okay, so let's go over to California Adventure. And over there, one of my favorites to use this for is Web Slingers, the Spider-Man ride, the Spider-Man Adventure. And that this one you will be split up most likely. Once in a great while, if they don't have a party of two, they might put you with someone else from your ride. But I love this one because it can literally cut out a 30 to 40 minute wait because you are almost immediately on the ride. And also, you don't miss any of the pre-show, like, aesthetics of the ride by doing that. Whereas other rides, sometimes when you do single rider, you miss some of that. This one, you do not. You still get to see everything. So I definitely say do it for that one.
I agree. Back over at Disneyland, we have Matterhorn bobsleds. This one, I would say most of the time not to do. I feel like this single rider takes the longest. It is quite slow to fill up. I think it's just the dynamics of how this ride loads and how it works. But that was the one that I brought my book on, and I was like, which single rider one will take the longest? And I chose that so that I could read through this book and just zone out.
Yeah.
But if you don't have a lightning lane and you know you want to ride that attraction, it is definitely going to take less time if the wait is 60 minutes or longer in the standby line. So if
Yes.
you don't care about riding with your party, and since you're not riding right next to each other, and if the wait is longer than 60 minutes, you might as well go ahead and try that single rider line.
Yeah. Um, Below 60 minutes, especially around the 30 to 40-minute mark, I have definitely heard reports where single rider ends up taking longer than standby. So
Yeah, I
it
would
is,
probably agree.
it's definitely one. Yeah, I kind of moved us over to California Adventure before I should have.
No,
But
you can keep going with California Adventure. That's great.
okay. So, since you talked about the Matterhorn, I'm going to talk about another one that can throw your back out of whack, and that is Goofy Sky School. So, this one offers single rider. This is actually the first ride my oldest did alone when he became the age that he could do that, because and he did it through single rider. So I just waited in the single rider line with him. And then I said, he's riding alone. I just wanted to wait in line with him. And they're like, okay, you can go here and wait at the exit now for him. So that one's pretty darn quick. I think the longest my son, he's the one that always rides it solo. I think the longest he's ever had to wait in that one was maybe 15 minutes. And that's when it was like some crazy like 60-minute wait for standby or something like that. And that's also one that we like to sometimes just let him go on if we're eating over in Paradise Garden Park and he's like, okay, I'm done eating. Can I please go do something? We'll either send him there or to the Silly Symphony Swings to ride. But he likes Goofy Sky School and there's a single rider. So that's often his pick.
I love that one too. It's perfect for a first time single rider. You can watch your child almost the entire time from standing in line to boarding to on the ride to exiting. So you have like a sight line the whole time. It's a
Yeah.
really good practice one. Now, Space Mountain is a very popular single rider line. They tend to change the way Space Mountain single rider operates the most frequently, I feel like. The last time that I checked it, they were queuing on the exit of Space Mountain, but it was outside. Now, I don't even remember what that theater is called anymore. Do you remember what that theater
Captain
is called?
EO, it's the Captain EO Theater, always and forever in my
Okay.
heart.
So they were queuing outside the exit of that theater. So as you're going up the exit, and I do have a picture of it on my website on the single rider article, you're going to see on the left a queue of people. So you're going to want to get in there if that's where they're having it at the time.
Yeah.
But also, and there are signs, but they're just a little bit sometimes not as obvious. And Space Mountain doesn't always open single rider right in the morning. That's actually kind of the case with a lot of single riders options. So don't just rush over there right in the morning and expect to be able to hop in the single rider line. But it is a decent option, especially again if the standby line is really long and you've already used your lightning lane multi-pass or you don't have one. So you've got to ride Space Mountain, especially if you're a thrill seeker. So that's a good option to ride that, especially if you want to ride it more than once. So don't pass up on Space Mountain.
Yeah. So I'll go back over to California Adventure. We can just kind of do it that way. Grizzly River Run is one that has a single rider option. Again, this is only when like Jessica said, most of these single riders, they don't offer them if the wait is like a walk on or they're not filling up the rafts anyways. But this one, you enter, oh man, I haven't used this one in a long time. I think you still enter through the exit area for the single rider. A cast member can always tell you where these are if you ask. But yeah, you'll just get put in. The one thing to know about this one is because you're filling in an empty seat, you're most likely going to end up right at the opening of the raft, which is where a lot of water will come in. So you may get extremely wet, more than you would if you are not a single rider on this ride. So just be aware of that. Bring your poncho, bring those, as Jessica likes to talk about in other episodes, those shower caps to cover your shoes and for your hair, and enjoy that short wait. It's great to have that though on a hot day. And it's not the only ride. I didn't see this on the list, but I'm queuing you up to talk about it, Jessica. There's another water ride that offers single rider now too.
Well, Tiana's Bayou Adventure in the past, before they switched it over, when it was Splash Mountain, they did have single rider, but it hasn't offered that yet. In the summertime, maybe it will come up again. So be on the lookout for that on the map. We're hopeful that that will return. There's been some rides that have been like taken off and put back on.
Yeah.
And I also keep a list of that on that article and kind of how that works, because there have been some that have been off for years and then they've put it back on again. I'm still wanting a single rider line on Guardians of the Galaxy, which has never come back since they switched it from Tower of Terror. So fingers crossed on that one. But we actually have finished the list of current ones at Disneyland Park.
Oh,
so,
no,
yeah.
we haven't. Oh, at Disneyland. Yeah. Now I will say, Jessica, when I was there at the beginning of March, they did offer single rider for Tiana's. It was not on the list, however, like
Great.
on the app. So they were letting people know that they were offering it. So I don't know if that was a test or if they're actually going to bring it
Perfect.
back. But
Yeah, so there's always things, and especially like when they are testing out stuff like that, and when summertime comes, like
Mhm.
it'll be a perfect one to do. And like I said, there's probably even signage there already for it, so we
Mhm.
should be expecting that. I'm hopeful.
Yeah. Okay.
Um,
Oh,
you want to take the next one at California Adventure, or do you want me to?
I'll take the next one and then you can do the one with your story. Okay, so
Perfect.
at California Adventure, the newest one that they've added to single rider is Soarin'. And we're saying just Soarin' because sometimes it's Soarin' around the world, sometimes it's Soarin' over California, depending on when you're visiting. But it has single rider. Now it's not always offered. It is very much based on the wait times and the demand, but it is a great option if you don't mind flying separate and you don't care what seat. So this is a big thing for a lot of people though, is because you're most likely going to end up in those distorted views on the edges, or in the rows that you have feet dangling in front of you. So if you want the best seat, then you're going to need to join the standby or the lightning lane queue. But if you don't care where you sit and you're just looking for an air conditioned ride, that's definitely the way to go, is single rider.
Yeah, I haven't done that one, and I'm wondering, like, how long it takes. I feel like that one could take a long time, no?
It could, depending on party sizes and stuff and how
Yeah,
they
I
fit.
haven't tested it.
Yeah.
But, the next one we'll talk about, Radiator Springs Racers. That is my favorite single rider line, I think, in all of the park, because it allows you to save that money on Lightning Lane single pass. And it is really tricky because for Radiator Springs Racers, you're going to do standby queue, or you're going to pay for that Lightning Lane single pass, or you're going to do single rider line. So when we go as a big family in the summer, we've got about 18 to 20 of us, depends on how many people go. We do a little bit of both. Like some years we'll wait in line together, and we've waited 90 minutes together so that we can ride together. And some years we're like, let's just hit the single rider line. When I have a group of people that have never been and we don't want to pay, we wait. And we wait so that they can have experience together. But a single rider, man, it's just perfect. And you're definitely going to wait less than 90 minutes when that wait time is so long. So I think it's a great time saver, a great money saver, because you're typically going to pay at least $25 per person to get in that Lightning Lane single pass.
The last one, which is another one my husband has done over and over while I did something else, was Incredicoaster. But he actually did it, now that I'm thinking about it, it was during early entry or like rope drop, so he didn't have to use the single rider line. But Incredicoaster does have it.
Yep.
And this one gets long. This single rider line gets long.
It gets really long and it's out in the sun.
Yes. So to
Not my
me,
favorite.
I kind of just don't use single rider at this one. Like I'm
Mm-mm.
either going to rope drop this when there's hardly any weight, or I'm going to have lightning lane and do it then, because it is out in the sun. It can get super long because the ride is only 2x2. The chance of there being an empty seat is a lot less, I feel like. And they're going to put like two parties of three together before they're going to pull from the single rider line.
I
So
agree. I think there's more strategies to get on that ride multiple times without involving single rider. So that is riding it in the morning, and then using your lightning lane later. I think it's just easier that way.
yeah, definitely. Okay, so those are all the single rider ones, but we've got to touch on this buddy pass that I
Mhm.
mentioned that is sometimes offered at different rides. And I'm going to start with a little story really quick. We went, and one of the rides is Monsters Inc., Mike and Sully to the rescue. And my friend and I asked, are you doing the buddy pass? And they said, no, the line's so short right now. We're not. And fine, that's fine. But we get in line, and all of a sudden, like, it's not moving fast anymore. And so people, they started up the buddy line again. So by the time we got to the vehicles, there were people that were in a buddy line coming in and still getting on before us. And it was kind of sad. But a buddy
Hmm.
pass is available at certain rides at certain times, and it allows two or a small party of three people, depending on the ride, to fill in a row, basically. So the rides this could be on would be Monsters Inc., Mike and Sully to the Rescue has this. They have this at Toy Story Midway Mania sometimes. And I know there's one more, but I can't think of it right
Hmm.
now. So they're
I don't
not ever
know
going to be
either.
listed as single rider lines. You're just going to have to ask a cast member if that's available. And if I ever remember that third one, I
Yeah, so
will let you.
those buddy passes too, they are also kind of cast member discretions.
Mhm.
Um, the Monsters Inc. one, I've seen like the ticket that they give you that says buddy pass that are printed out. And I have also found, and this may be just a random finding, but when I've tried to ask for buddy pass with two adults or like myself and like a teenager, they tell me no. But when I've done it with myself and a little child or baby slash preschooler, they tell me yes. Just as a random check, not anything. I haven't done a scientific study. And then at Toy Story, and I tried to do it with a child, and they told me no. And I said, and I was just really trying to understand because I had heard it, read it. I said, do you even do that? Because I've just heard this, but I've never been able to do it. And they said, well, it just really depends on staffing. And so I said, okay, because I was like, should I ever try this again? And they just said, it really just depends on staffing, and we don't have the people to do it right now. So I have never tried that again there.
Okay, good to know. Um, So we've covered all the single rider lines. Hopefully we've saved you some time in line by having you listen to this podcast. If you want to get discount tickets though with Lightning Lane included so that you can ride with your group, remember that you can get those through our partners at getawaytoday.com/castle talk, and that will lock in the lowest rate possible for Lightning Lane, as well as get you discounts on your Disneyland park tickets as well. And we'll see you real soon in the single rider line.